Hey folks, Keith Stickley here with the Stickley Law Firm in downtown Hillsdale, Michigan. We're a full-service criminal defense law firm here dedicated to protecting the rights of people accused of crimes. And today we're doing a little bit of a different type of a video. If you've been paying attention to our channel here for the Stickley Law Firm, you notice that we put a lot of content out on a weekly basis as much as we have time to really try and explain in easy to understand language different legal problems that people have. But today's a little bit different. I'm normally sitting down at my desk. Today's a little bit different because it's later at night. I'm getting ready to go home, but we had a really big day today in court, and I had a pretty big victory for some Michigan sportsmen here in the state of Michigan. Not long after watching one of my videos on hunting and DNR officers, I received a phone call and ended up getting retained by a gentleman who was recently out hunting during archery season. And he was up in his blind, and he saw a deer, and he took a shot. And the arrow hit the deer, and the deer did not immediately die. Now, he had a general idea where the deer went, but the sun was going down. He didn't want to be out late at night, after sunset tracking the thing. He didn't know exactly where it was. So after a brief search, he actually went back to his vehicle, and he went back to his home. And he was going to wait a little while. Well, he ended up going out there the next morning to try and find this deer because it was not immediately apparent where it had fallen. So he actually came back in the morning and he parked his truck sort of at the field edge and started hiking in. And it was quite a ways. It was a good probably half mile in to where his tree stand was. He figured it probably was somewhere not too far from the tree stand, but he was hoping he could find some blood or track it and pick up on where the deer may have fallen. 20, 30 yards out, he realized, oh man, I actually forgot my deer tag in my other jacket in the car. So he turns around and he hikes to his pickup truck, his vehicle, and goes to get his tag. And in doing so, who pulls up right there? A DNR officer. Now, the DNR officer starts asking him all sorts of questions. Now, this guy has never had any sort of confrontation with law enforcement in his entire life, and he doesn't think he's in any trouble because, well, he didn't really do anything wrong. He shot a deer. He couldn't figure out exactly where it had fallen, and he was just trying to do the right thing. Sun came up. He wanted to go find the deer, right? Didn't want the meat to go bad, and forgot that he didn't have the tag. He didn't move the deer or anything like that. So he puts the tag in his pocket. DNR guy's like, hey, I'm going to go follow you. Let's go see where this deer's at. Next thing you know, another DNR guy shows up. Now he's got two DNR guys following him, and they're peppering him with all sorts of questions. They want to know, when did he get his license, which is kind of obvious. You can tell pretty quick when you get your license. And they go in the area of where the deer stand is, and they're looking around, and he sees basically where he's shot, and he looks over, and he sees the deer. It's not real close, but it's not super far. And it's kind of like by a border of the property that he had permission to hunt on, but it's clearly on the property that he had permission to hunt on. And so suddenly, the entire focus of this investigation changes to, what are you doing? Where's your tag? And all this thing to where did you shoot the deer? Did you shoot the deer actually from that stand? I don't think you could make that shot. I don't know if you had a clear shot. They're going on and on. Did you shoot the deer and have the deer run onto this other land? Do you know what's over on that other land? And the guy happened to know it was on the other land. There was no evidence that it was on the other land. Now they're trying to set him up for a rec trespass ticket. In other words, they're trying to set him up for going on some other land, and it's apparently some other kind of state land. I'm not sure why he wouldn't have been able to go over there if it's state land, but whatever, regardless. They're literally trying to set him up. He's got two DNR officers, and they're asking him questions. They're peppering him questions, seeing if he's going to make some sort of a mistake in his story to tell these guys. And there's nothing there. There's literally nothing there. This is a total nothing burger. So he's like, well, I found the deer. They look on their app. Deer's on the property that he's allowed to hunt. There's two guys there. He's like, well, hey, can I tag the deer? Gonna take the deer. And they're like, oh yeah, go ahead. You can tag the deer. Probably won't be a problem. So he does. Notches the tag, puts it on. He starts field dressing the deer out, I think. And he's like, man, I'm gonna have to drag this thing back to the truck and whatever. So the guys, they finally leave. After peppering him with even more questions about what kind of equipment he's using and Where is he going and where does he take it? Did he get any other deer this way, right? They're just peppering him with all these questions. And finally, when they got there to the spot and they started asking these questions and implying that maybe he did something on some other piece of land, finally he got the hint and he stopped talking, which is something all of you should immediately do. You need to stop talking to these guys because they are literally looking for some sort of infraction because they have nothing else better to do. Catching real poachers is like really, really hard, okay? So they might as well justify their existence by trying to go and hammer, seemingly, innocuous, innocent people with these bogus things. So there was nothing they could get him on. There was literally nothing. So they leave. So he takes the deer. He drags the thing out, gets his truck a little closer, loads the deer up. He's gone. We think that's the end of the story. But it should have been the end of the story, but it's not because it's the DNR. What does he do next? He takes the deer to the processor, decides, I'm going to probably have this thing mounted up. He thinks everything's hunky-dory, right? Until that letter comes in the mail. And guess what's in that letter? Yep, you guessed it, a citation for failure to immediately tag a deer upon harvest. A 90-day misdemeanor that can give him up to 90 days in jail, a $500 fine, and he's got to actually go to a district court to sort the thing out. It's not even like a check it, send it in, and pay it kind of a thing. To add insult to injury, it happens to be one of the things where it's at the judge's discretion of whether or not all of his hunting rights can be stripped away for the rest of the year, and he can be banned for hunting the next year. Pretty hefty stuff for this ridiculous situation. So what did he do? Well, he did the right thing. He called a lawyer. In this case, it was our firm. We filed an appearance, and not only did we file an appearance, we filed a demand for a jury trial because there is no way in the world I was going to let this guy just plead down to some sort of a reduced charge with this set of circumstances. This is the one kind of scenario that really gets my goat, and I really try and go all the way, if at all possible, and my clients are comfortable with doing so. State statute says that you have to tag a deer after harvesting it immediately. But there's only one problem, and this is the thing that trips people up. What does harvesting mean? When do you actually have to tag the deer? Interestingly enough, when we actually got to court today, we were able to have a rational, logical conversation with a prosecutor. And let me tell you, that doesn't happen very often, or at least as often as we'd like. And elections have consequences. Aside, but if you sportsmen are not paying attention to elections like judicial elections and prosecutorial elections, you are missing out and you are shorting yourself. There's some very interesting information that I know Uncle Ted and a couple of others have put out based on surveys and voter research that shows that so many sportsmen in the state of Michigan, in fact, I'm told it's almost a majority of sportsmen, don't vote in local elections. And because of that, you get ridiculous judges and ridiculous prosecutors who don't respect your rights or don't look at these type of situations with an open and logical mind like they should. Luckily, today was not that case. I was able to clearly and rationally lay out the foundation of why this gentleman did not commit a crime. And in the end, the case was completely dismissed. Now you might be wondering, well, if it says immediately upon harvest, didn't this guy harvest the deer? Well, it's not that simple. You see, in section 3.103 of the Wildlife Conservation Code, it basically says that you have to immediately tag upon harvest. But harvest is never defined. What does this even mean? And that chunk of the law has all these different paragraphs that simply relate to that the various procedures can basically be defined administratively by the Department of Natural Resources, by the DNR. So the DNR basically has the ability to make up whatever rules that they want, and they enforce them through the power of the law granted to them in, I think it's MCL 3.103. The only way we were actually able to show that this was not a violation is we presented the prosecutor with the 2025 of the Deer Hunting Handbook. If you've bought a hunter's license, you obviously know that they have those printed guidebooks. Those are very, very, very important to have. And I encourage people to have them on them when they go out into the field. Keep it with your hunter's tag. If you go into that actual book, and there's a free PDF. In fact, I'm going to link in the comments or the description in this video below. I'm going to link to the 2025 book. And you can see for it yourself where it says this. They actually link a table of contents, and there is a section that says basically, I think it's validation of permit, or it's basically the section that says, what does this mean? Like, how are you supposed to validate your kill? How are you supposed to tag it, right? And it says that you have to immediately tag upon harvest and field dress before moving. Now, in this situation, my guy had not field dressed the deer. He had not moved the deer. And quite frankly, he wasn't even sure what before he left or knew where the deer was, that the deer was actually even dead, right? So there's no violation. But how would you have known that? Well, a lot of attorneys who don't do this stuff a lot might not realize that that law is not actually codified in an MCL. You actually have to go to their administrative rule book to find out what in the heck they mean. And the prosecutor actually asked for a definition, and we were able to present her with a definition. And I mean, she was a pleasure to work with. I have no complaints whatsoever. And in fact, she actually even asked for the citation because she wanted to fire it over to the DNR officer, because she's like, look, when this guy's like, why'd you dismiss this thing? I'm going to be like, dude, why are you writing citations on, this is in your own guidebook, is I think actually the words that she used. And so I'm very appreciative about that. And we had a fantastic outcome. But still, my guy still had to take time off of work. He had to hire an attorney. He had to get involved. And, you know, that's all time, effort, and money that he doesn't get back. Quite frankly, while I was there during that same court during the day, there's other people with very similar, you know, DNR type infractions. And I'm hoping, and I guess that this particular prosecutor, who is actually really one of the good ones, a very astute prosecutor, I think that she is probably going to take that same learning into these other cases and probably be fair with those other guys. But there's a lot of prosecutors throughout the state who don't want to look at these things with an open mind, who don't want to really look at it in a rational, sane way, in an objective way. And then at that point, you have to rely on, you know, an attorney who can convince a jury and really lay out the path of why whatever happened is not even a violation at all. These kind of situations are really unfortunate too, because it's one of the things that puts a really bad taste in the mouth of honest sportsmen who are out there trying to do the right thing, trying to enjoy the outdoors, and really kind of doing the community a service. I mean, in so many areas in the state, there's an overpopulation of deer, and the population of these deer has to be controlled. And the amount of deer being harvested is certainly not on the rise. The amount of people going out into the woods is certainly not on the rise. And it doesn't give you a real good, warm, fuzzy feeling of wanting to do this when you have to worry about being harassed by the DNR, who are literally just looking for a violation. I mean, it was textbook, literally, it was textbook entrapment. The DNR is trying to go after violation to raise revenue, to raise statistics, to justify their existence. Look, I'm not saying that all DNR enforcement is bad. I'm not saying to abolish the DNR, because you know what? There are a-hole poachers out there doing the wrong thing. And those guys, unfortunately, are really hard to catch. And they're really bad dudes. And they're making it very difficult for the rest of the law-abiding, you know, hunting and sportsman community. That's why it's so important to protect the rights that we do have, especially when you are being, you know, interrogated and accused of something that you didn't do, a violation that you didn't do. So bottom line, what can we really learn from this? I think that it's safe to say that we've learned that harvesting a deer doesn't just mean shooting a deer. And if you're being accused of just shooting a deer and getting some ticket for not immediately tagging it, if you haven't moved the deer, if you haven't field dressed the deer, and if you don't even know that the deer is actually dead, you haven't committed a crime. And if they're writing you a citation for it, you better lawyer up and go and defend your rights, because that's ridiculous. And this is not the first time I've had to deal with this exact same scenario. It was the first time in this jurisdiction, and I was glad to see that it didn't turn out into some, you know, big, crazy, legal, drawn-out battle. But this is something that happens in all of our 80+ counties throughout the state of Michigan. And it's something that, quite frankly, I don't think the DNR has very good training and experience on. You know, it is not uncommon at all for someone not to approach an animal the second that they shoot it. Why? Because you don't know that it's dead, right? You don't want it to jump up and come at you. I got a story about a wild hog hunt, and I got to tell you, I almost had to check my drawers after that one. The other thing that really helped us help our client is that he was smart enough to know when to stop talking. Now, I probably would have stopped talking even earlier, but he stopped talking when he realized that this whole thing is a setup and there's banter back and forth and they're peppering random questions. And he did not have an argument out there in the field. He was willing to just say, hey, look, I don't know what you're talking about. Can I tag this deer? Do I have to do anything else? And they finally let him go. And he gets the citation in the mail, and yeah, it's disappointing and it sucks and he's angry and it turns into an expensive proposition. But we do our fighting in the courtroom with professionals where we know that we are on an even playing field, even have a leg up because we know the law, we know how to research. We don't argue. And if this easily could have gone the other way, he could have gotten lippy, he could have gotten angry or indignant. And the next thing you know, they're charging him with resisting and obstructing a police officer or some other crazy thing that turns into a felony, which happens all the time. And then we have a way bigger problem that is almost impossible to deal with. So it's that time of year, folks, where our phones start ringing off the hook. The traditional firearms season is wrapping up, coming to an end. There's some late seasons coming up, but the DNR tickets start going out en masse. And for about the next 3 months, we'll be dealing with a lot of these things. If you or somebody that you care about has been accused of a DNR violation and you want competent representation, give us a call here at the Stickley Law Firm. We're going to take your call. We're going to set up an appointment. We'll hear you, take a look at the entire circumstance, give you a thorough case evaluation, and let you know what we're up against. And if it's not something that I can help you with, try to point you in the direction to somebody who can. Also, we get a lot of inquiries about people who have a legal question about either carrying a concealed gun or hunting rights or something that they really want an in-depth, personalized, one-on-one legal conversation with an attorney on, but they're kind of either afraid or intimidated or don't know how about contacting an attorney and getting real legal advice. And our office has actually set up a really neat service through a link through our Stand store. I'm going to put a link to that also in the video description. If you want a half-hour one-on-one, completely customized to you telephone consultation, talking about your unique firearm or sportsman's related problem, you can go ahead and book an appointment. It'll just be you and I one-on-one with a little bit of background. We'll go into detail on your specific unique legal concerns and guidance that you want answered, but probably don't need to have like a full-blown case about or want to make a long trek over here to my office. We find it's a really convenient way for people to get real-world legal advice that's custom to their unique situation, and it doesn't take a lot of time to do it, and it's extremely convenient. Until then, folks, if you or somebody you care about have a legal problem you need assistance with, give me a call here at the Stickley Law Firm, and stay safe, and we'll talk to you real soon.